Hi, I'm going to be taking a look at some of my favorite CDs from my CD collection. Over the years I've collected hundreds of CDs, and this is just a small sampling of some of the more noteworthy and interesting CDs from my collection. Now, many people who know me know that I'm really into a lot of electronic synthesizer music and new wave music, a lot of stuff from like the late 70s to the mid 80s. But there's some other genres that I love as well. Starting things off, here is Mr. Jeanmichel Jarre, the synthesizer king, and this album is called Electronica 1, The Time Machine. And what's really great about this album came out in 2015, and it's basically a bunch of collaborations between Jeanmichel Jarre and a whole host of stars from the electronic music world. There's collaborations on here with Vince Clarke, Air, Laurie Anderson, Tangerine Dream, Pete Townsend, the list goes on and on. It's a very, very notable collaboration between Jarre and a whole bunch of well-known artists in the electronic music world. So that's the first CD, Jeanmichel Jarre Electronica 1, The Time Machine. And we see it comes in a nice gatefold sleeve, digipack packaging. And there's the CD itself. Very, very nice. Coming up next, this is a CD that I looked for years. I heard about this quite some time ago, and it took me a long time to track it down. This is called Pretending to See the Future, a tribute to OMD. I'm a huge fan of orchestral maneuvers in the dark. And when I heard about this tribute CD, I thought, I really would love to hear that. And again, it took me a long time to track it down and find a copy. But basically, it's a lot of indie bands. Most of these bands you've probably never heard of. Some of them maybe you have. This was first released in 2001. Some of the bands on the compilation include the Acid House Kings, the Babies, Garlands. Again, a lot of indie bands that aren't super well known, but most of the covers are really good. I think my favorite is the cover of Souvenir. And the cover of Souvenir is by a band called Brittle Stars. It's a really, really excellent rendition of the song. So again, this is called Pretending to See the Future, a tribute to OMD. And it probably took me a good 12 to 15 years to find this CD. I recall seeing it over the years, but it would always be listed at these really crazy high prices. Like, I remember seeing people ask $60, $70, $80 for this CD, and I really didn't want to pay that much. And finally, I think I found a vendor on Discogs who was selling it for, I think, maybe $20 or less, so I really lucked out when I found that. So again, a really good tribute to OMD. Coming up next, true classic, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band Anniversary Edition. And this is actually the stereo mix. Some of you may not have heard this yet. Beautiful packaging. We have some great artwork there. A nice booklet comes with it. Lots of great photos and artwork. Just a really nice packaging. But yeah, the original mix of the album was done in stereo. I really don't know how they do that. They also did that with the Pet Sounds album a few years back, and it sounds really interesting. I don't know if I would say that it replaces the original mix. I'm very used to the original mix, as I'm sure many of you are, but it's still a very interesting version. Again, it's a stereo remastering of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and it's very good. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Coming up next, we have the Smiley Smile album by the Beach Boys. And I found this in a secondhand store a few years back. We'll just take a look inside and see what it looks like. Yeah, and this is basically what they used to call a two-for, or a twofer, or whatever. It's basically two albums in one. It's Smiley Smile as well as Wild Honey. And for a time they used to do this where they would put two albums on one compact disc. And we see the track listing there. And this particular release came out in 1990, so 31 years ago. But all the tracks are there, and there's also some bonus tracks as well. And it sounds really great. And again, they did this with a number of the Beach Boys albums from the 60s and into the 70s. They would release these 2-4 packages. And they're really neat, so if you ever find them, pick them up. Really very interesting collector's edition. Coming up next, a different album. Huey Lewis and the News, Greatest Hits and Videos. I've been a big Huey Lewis and the News fan since the 80s. I love pretty much most of what they did in the 80s. The Sports album is in my top 10 all-time favorite albums. And what's great about this release is not only do we have a Greatest Hits CD, but we also have, let's see if I can get it open here, a DVD featuring a bunch of videos. We have the videos for Do You Believe in Love, Heart and Soul, I Want a New Drug, The Heart of Rock and Roll, If This Is It, Bad Is Bad, The Power of Love, Stuck With You, Doing It All for My Baby, and Working for a Living. So that's the main reason why I bought this package, was for the DVD. But the Greatest Hits CD is also really cool to have as well. So basically it's another 2-in-1 special. Again, that's Huey Lewis and the News, Greatest Hits and Videos. Just a really, really interesting collection of their greatest songs and some of their videos. Okay. Coming up next, here's a band that many of you may not have heard about. I discovered these guys a few years ago. These guys are called Lynx. They were a British band from the early 80s. They really only released a couple of albums and then they kind of disappeared. But when they were around, they left a big mark on the British pop charts. Again, really a classic example of British soul. You could also call it Brit pop. It's soul music, but there's also a very definite pop feel to the whole album. It's just really, really great. If you like soul music, if you like soul pop music, I think you'd really like this. This album is called Intuition, and it's a really, really great album. I've played it so many times. It's really strong from beginning to end. And we have the album proper as well as a bunch of bonus songs as well. This album originally came out in 1981. This re-release came out in 2011. So definitely Lynx, a really, really great album. Certainly much better known in England than they were known here in North America. So if you've never heard of them, check them out. One of my favorite songs is called Throw Away the Key. Just a really awesome pop track. Coming up next, we have the album Mystery Walk. And this is by the band Martha and the Muffins. Now, Martha and the Muffins, for a brief period of time, called themselves M+M. They were a Canadian new wave band, a really cool, really intelligent band. They had big hits like Black Stations, White Stations, and Cooling the Medium. Both of those songs are on this album. This is a re-release that came out just a few years ago. And we've got some really neat graphics, and there's a nice booklet inside here. This was a very limited release. I don't know if you can still get this, but basically this album was produced by famous producer Daniel Lanois. And it's just a really awesome, awesome album. I had this on cassette for the longest time. For decades, I only had it on cassette. And I think it may have been briefly released on CD back in the late 80s, but that CD went out of print and it was very, very hard to find. So it was re-released just a few years ago, which I'm very glad to see. An excellent album, Mystery Walk by Martha and the Muffins. And the last CD I'm going to show you The Human League Travelogue. This was the Human League's second album. I was very glad to get this on CD a number of years ago. Just a wonderful collection of electronic music, electronic pop music. We've got a booklet here with the CD lyrics. And something I've always noticed about this CD, and I don't know if you could tell it here in the video, the disc itself is very, very thick. And again, you probably can't tell from just seeing it here in the video, but it seems quite thicker than most CDs. I'm not sure why that is, but you can notice it when you grab the CD by the edges here. You can really tell that it's a thicker CD. Again, the Human League's Travelogue. So that is just a sampling of some of my favorite compact discs from my collection. I hope to do a few more videos like this in the future where I just randomly pick some of my favorite CDs and share them with you. Thank you for watching, and if you have a favorite CD, let me know. Tell me, what are your favorite CDs? I'd love to hear. Leave a comment, give us a thumbs up. As always, please subscribe to the channel. I post new tech reviews every week, and the best way to stay on top of all the latest reviews is to subscribe. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.